Today we will be reviewing the AI Golden Jet Fighter GTX MT5 Expert Advisor by Mr. Andre Nazarets. Stick around to the end to receive a free Expert Advisor by us at Prosperity Algo Solutions. And while you're here, why don't you hit subscribe so you never miss a video like this again. Cool, so we can start off here on the sales page to get an idea of how this Expert Advisor works. So it's actually saying that it's using neural networks for scalping the gold markets and helping traders capitalize on short-term price movements. It's also mentioning that it's using a spread filter and a slippage filter as well, and that it's using risk management that enables traders to set risk levels as a percentage of account balance, and that it's easy to set up. So we can also go through and look at it a bit more in detail and see that it trades gold on the H1 time frame, and that each trade is protected with a stop loss, and that it does not use grid, martingale, or other dangerous strategies. So it'll be interesting to go through and see if the equity curve also confirms that. So we can go through here and look at the back test quickly. So it appears to be using, nope, no pending orders. We'll run a visual backtest a little bit later, but it looks so far like it's doing a degree of market entries, which is interesting. And here we're seeing a beautifully smooth equity curve, so it'd be worth going through and dissecting that a bit more in detail. And here he's also showing some screenshots from the MetaTrader backtester, which looks cool. But ultimately just shows that you ran an optimization. So I've actually read through this page already, and what I found was super interesting is that contrary to the vast majority of AI Expert Advisor, this developer seems to actually have an understanding of how AI works. So let's just quickly look at the signal page before we go into detail, and it shows that we're having exceptionally good returns here for the month of October. But this also appears to be a relatively high-risk setting because the developer only deposited $300 and is up almost double that. But he's clearly trading with a significant amount of volume relative to the account balance. But here we can see that they're already starting to trail off the volume pretty significantly. So most likely this is being done as a marketing strategy, where you essentially start a bunch of accounts. You use very high leverage at the beginning. So you can say, hey, we've had 100% returns. And then you would rapidly scale down the volume, so how big you're trading, so that you don't blow the account. That appears to be what he's doing here, but you can't blame him either. A lot of MetaTrader or MQL5 EA sellers do this. It's more of a marketing gimmick, but not really an unforgivable sin either. But what I found most interesting about this bot is that this gentleman seems to have an understanding of how how artificial intelligence can actually be used in expert advisors. And what is quite interesting to begin with is that he specifically says throughout this is like, hey, you really shouldn't be using ChatGPT for an expert advisor. You want to effectively include a custom model, which makes absolute complete sense. I don't think you'll find any sort of serious algo trader try to use ChatGPT to predict price. ChatGPT is a phenomenal programming assistant or can crunch data, but large language models are just not the right tool to try and predict price or to use a classifier as to if price will go up or down. It's just using the wrong tool for the job. You need a specialized model, not a super generalized model which can do millions and millions of different things. And he really does speak to this here. He's also mentioning that you would typically need to train a model in Python, which can then be used by a MetaTrader expert advisor, which is completely accurate. So here he's mentioning like, hey, you would install Python and you would then get the data from MQL5. You would scale the data in Python, which is completely accurate. You might not use this exact method of scaling, but for this type of model, which is I think he's using a long short-term memory model here in LSTM, you would need to typically scale the data. there is some danger with the exact method he's using here that you could introduce some bias, but he might just be showing a toy example as well. So here, it's classic LSTM model. From what I can see here, this appears to be more of a regressor model, not a classifier. So mean squared error is usually what you'd use when building more of a regression-based model. But what this shows, which is quite refreshing, is this guy at least knows how deep learning models can be trained, which is already night and day above the majority of MQL5 developers who say that they use artificial intelligence, but they're really just posting the Wikipedia page to seem fancy. And then here he's saying that how you would integrate MQL5 with the Python Expert Advisor. This is where I got a little bit skeptical, because perhaps you could execute your script via the shell, but you could also perhaps include it. You can run Python scripts on the charts. And the way that I personally have so far used MQL5 Expert Advisors with Python is to save the Python file, the model, as an ONNX file, which can then be read by your EA. But this might very well be just a different method of doing it, which I am less familiar with. But it is showing that you do need to, generally speaking, read in a Python script or a Python model from somewhere else on your device to be able to use it in an Expert Advisor. But the slight bit of skepticism that I have now is that he's saying, hey, you have to read a script, but he's also not providing a script when purchasing or at least back testing the Expert Advisor. This could just be because you need to contact him afterwards, but something to keep in mind. But the general wrap up of this part of the video is that this gentleman seems to have a far greater knowledge of how AI can be used than the vast majority of Expert Advisor sellers. He's saying a lot of the right things. At least he knows that, hey, you need to train in Python. You need to use, generally speaking, a certain type of model. There could be some little nuances which he's perhaps not showing on the sales page, but already I'm quite impressed relative to the baseline. So now we can open up MQL5, go into the marketplace here, and see if we can find it real quick. And yes, I will run a quick back test and restart the video once that is completed. Okay, we are now back with the results of the back test, and it's quite an interesting one. So as you can see, I downloaded it from the marketplace and I ran a back test using the 8-cap broker on the H1 on gold. And here, looking at the graph, it looks very, very smooth and very, very nice, but we are seeing some drawdowns of the equity relative to the balance. And that would typically indicate the presence of a martingale. But if we look here, there does not appear to be too many grids. So perhaps this is more a recovery mechanism where they rapidly scale lot size. There's also one large loss here, and this could either indicate the presence of a very large stop loss in order to take profit ratio, or a recovery mechanism that failed. But if we look at the exact backtest results, we're seeing that they're winning 99.5% of the trades, and the average profit trade is, oh yeah, here we go. So the average profit trade is vastly, vastly smaller than the average take profit. So doing the exact math there, the average profit trade is vastly, vastly smaller than the average stop loss. So yeah, it's a 0.04 risk-reward ratio. So this appears to just have an absolutely enormous stop loss. But that could only just be one piece of the puzzle. Okay, let me actually go and run a visual back test now in order to see how this would look. We're also seeing that an initial deposit of 10 grand becomes $5 million, which is impossible, right? Like that would mean that if you see results like this in a back test, you know that something fishy is happening. It could either be like there's a degree of manipulation, there's a degree of overfitting, perhaps there's a history reader, but if somebody could turn 10 grand into $5 million, they would never sell the expert advisor. So you're looking for a very good return when running a back test. You can have 3-digit returns, you can have doubling or tripling of accounts, but just this insane exponential growth should usually get your alarm bells ringing. So let's now quickly run a visual back test to see if this thing is actually following a strategy. Okay, we can perhaps zoom in. So it's using market execution, and it's not placing pending orders at any sort of key levels. Fast forward a bit. So it's definitely a mean reversion premise, right? Or like a mean reversion which has already turned around. So for instance here, we would have essentially reverted away from the mean, we would have started to come back down, and it would have tried to almost follow the reversion back to the mean. So this could be an RSI which has entered the overbought zone and then kind of come back into the normal zone, and you're essentially entering as the RSI or whatever indicator re-enters the zone. That is a fairly common strategy. And then we're seeing as well, it just uses an enormous stop loss. So it's waiting, like here, instead of stopping out, it would have just waited for price to come back. And it would have also opened more orders while the current order was open. So this is definitely one part of it. They are just using a relatively enormous stop loss. Let's also look at volume here. And we can see that there is quite a bit of scaling of volumes where it can suddenly quadruple. So yes, this is quite interesting. So the actual strategy it's following, it appears to have one, but not a particularly sophisticated one. It appears to be using enormous stop losses, which could potentially be rather dangerous, and it has a degree of lot scaling. So in conclusion, to wrap up this video, it's going to be a bit of a longer one. The developer seems to be a smart guy. He has a reasonably good understanding of how machine learning works. However, as we can see here running the backtest, no machine learning model files are included. So I'm still skeptical if, despite the author's knowledge, this expert advisor in any way actually uses the long short-term memory model which he mentioned. And at the same time, there is a degree of manipulation going on. Just seeing the results of 10 grand to 5 million, that usually doesn't happen in real life, or not usually. It's highly unlikely that would happen in real life. And there are some funny techniques going on, such as the enormous stop loss, some random scaling of lot sizes, perhaps recovery factor. So I'm not going to go as far to say that this is a horrific, the worst expert advisor on MQL5, but I would be extremely skeptical, and I would definitely wait to see lots and lots of live data before even trying it on a demo. So thank you guys for your time today. I hope you found this video valuable, and please let me know in the comments if you have any other feedback. Take care and stick around for the following short clip. Before you click away, if you're looking to get a real expert advisor, here at Prosperity Algo Solutions, we're currently offering our Golden Time Bomb system based on automating the London breakout and opening range breakout 100% for free. Watch the pinned video to find out more and to get access.